Shalom. My name is Gila Zarbiv. I am a certified nurse midwife working in the labor and delivery ward of Hadassah Ein Kerem. It is truly a profound honor for me to be standing here today in front of all of you powerful, passionate women and men. I have long wanted to meet each and every one of you and thank you in person on behalf of the 2017 nurses of Hadassah for all you do for Hadassah every single day. Thank you. I've always loved Israel. It is something that was ingrained in me by my parents, the super crazy people sitting up here. I love you. Ingrained in me by my parents from the moment I was born. All my life, I knew I wanted to be a midwife in Israel. When I was little, I read a book called Rakela, which if you haven't read, I highly recommend. Wow! And Barbara's like, they'll know what it is. And I'm like, really? Go you guys. It tells the story of Rachela, one of the original nurse midwives in Israel, who helped build the nursery ward in Jerusalem and saved the life of Golda Meir's only daughter, Sarah, by diagnosing her with eclampsia in her pregnancy. Did you know that? Rachela died the month and year that I was born, March 1985, and I've always felt a very special connection with her. When I was 18 years old, I traveled to Israel and volunteered in Hadassah Hospital in the audiology department. My role was to check newborn babies' hearing. Walking through the halls of the halls of the nursery, I thought of Rachela and what one single nurse can build and create. It was like being a part of history. It was being part of something much bigger than myself. The second I walked into the labor and delivery ward and was promptly kicked out, I thought, this is where I was meant to be. I graduated from Yeshiva University, shout out, and moved to Israel right away. The week I landed, I met my husband in Hadassah, obviously. Where else are we going to meet? I was starting nursing school at the Henrietta Szold Hadassah Hebrew University School of Nursing, and he was finishing medical school in the Hebrew University Hadassah Medical School. We locked eyes for the very first time in the lobby of the hospital. We got married that year. Thank you for the applause. Excellent. That's to our marriage. We got married that year and had 4 beautiful, perfect children. And I will now speak about them for the remaining 12 minutes. No, I'm not allowed. I was specifically told, but please find me later, because that, I feel like, is the reason. Anyways, I am now a master's student in the Women's Health Department studying at Hadassah Nursing School on the thesis track, where I'm researching the impact of the Me Too movement on obstetricians, gynecologists, and midwives. It's a cool topic, I agree. But enough about me. I am here today to try to give you a taste of what it means to work in Hadassah and what kind of a place each of you are supporting. When people talk about the Middle East, they generally talk about it in the context of war, terror, and conflict. Every day, the news is saturated with stories of pain and suffering. Now, as much as this is going to sound like an infomercial, it is the truth. There are no politics in Hadassah's walls. Hospitals in general are known for their nonpartisan beliefs and their ethical and moral compasses. But Hadassah has a unique aspect of building bridges in the Middle East. When a woman in labor walks through the door, she is just that, a woman in labor. No one asks or cares about her race, religion, beliefs, or political views. Every single woman is simply a human being in the need of the highest standard of care. It may seem like a given, but Hadassah is shoulders above the rest. A few months ago, a woman presented to the labor and delivery ward from a remote Arab village. She was very, very sick. She was 24 weeks, which is about 5 months pregnant, and very well into her labor. She had a high fever, close to 104 and was progressing very quickly. She came to Hadassah after bouncing from hospital to hospital and being told that they were not equipped to treat her. Hospitals throughout the West Bank, as well as other prominent hospitals in Jerusalem, informed her that she could deliver by them, but they were not equipped to treat her extremely preterm baby. When she arrived at Hadassah after being transferred from over 3 hospitals, she was almost fully dilated. Within minutes, the top NICU doctors and midwives who specialize in extreme preterm births were by her side. Her baby was born a very short time later and was viable, rigorous, and crying despite having a severe infection and being extremely premature. We immediately began resuscitating her using a brand new technique where we perform the neonatal resuscitation while the baby is still attached to the umbilical cord. That means the baby is born, the baby goes onto the bed, and the umbilical cord is not cut. The baby remains on the bed next to her mother, and the team and the staff surround the mother and the baby. This treatment takes place while the cord is still pumping blood to the baby, thereby maximizing oxygen perfusion and improving outcome. It's essentially a blood transfusion while we're resuscitating. This 600-gram, 1.3-pound baby was brought up to the NICU on simple oxygen. Do you know what that means? That means that this tiny baby who barely had lungs didn't need to be intubated. She didn't need a tube from her nose to her lungs. She just had some oxygen by her face. Warm, pink, and crying. She improved every single day and was one of the incredibly rare statistics of extreme preterm that had no bleeding in the brain and no complications. A few years ago, these babies weren't even considered viable. And here we are today. Now, the medical aspect to this story is exciting, impressive, and one that I am profoundly proud to have been a part of. But that's not where the story ends. As many shifts as I could, I went up to visit her. I became close with the mother and father, and I spent a lot of time over the many weeks and months of her stay sitting with them, drinking tea with them, and talking about our hopes and dreams. Now, mind you, neither of the parents speak Hebrew, and my Arabic is meager at best. Our conversations are sparse, with few words and a lot of hand gestures and laughter. We speak a language of mutual respect, patience, kindness, and support, and it makes all the difference. This was months ago. The baby is currently doing wonderfully. I went up to see her before I came. She is hitting all her milestones and expected to be discharged soon. That is what it means to work in Hadassah. That is what it means to build bridges. Now, I speak to a lot of people in my line of work. Once an American student asked me, "Do you think being a Zionist helps or hurts your ability to treat women in Israel with all the politics and the conflict and the noise?" And I answered him, Zionism for me is building bridges. Zionism is the ability to promote peace, dignity, respect, and equality for every single person that walks through the doors of Hadassah. Now, growing up... Okay, this is the hard part. I hope you brought tissues. Whew, we're going to breathe through it like at birth. Okay. Here we go, guys. Growing up in Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in what my parents like to call the friendliest place on earth, I was a proud and loud Zionist. I never thought twice about the events I chaired or the fundraisers we made or the programs we created. Here we go. You all know where this is going, so let's get it over with. On October 27th, 2018, my youngest sister's birthday, Shabbat had just ended, and my phone began to ring incessantly. Gila, where are Mommy and Abba? Have you spoken to them? Does anybody know where they are? Are they okay? You knew I had 12 minutes. You just think you'd be watching me cry for 12 minutes. A shooter had entered a synagogue 5 minutes away from my home and in cold blood murdered my friends and cut a hole through the heart of my community. My parents often talk about the stress and anxiety they feel when they open the news and see the terror, war, and suffering going on in Israel. More than once, I have been on the receiving end of a panic phone call making sure my family was alive and well. To be standing on the other side of that experience, not knowing if my parents were alive or bleeding on a synagogue floor, is a surreal experience I pray I never have to do again. We didn't know which synagogue the attack had taken place yet, and it was Shabbat, and my parents, being religious Jews, they were not answering their phones. I called and called for what felt like hours, knowing that eventually they wouldn't be able to stand the ringing anymore and would have to tell us somehow that they were alive. They ended up walking to a non-Jewish neighbor who called to say that they were alive and well. The sense of relief that we felt at that moment was not one that everyone that day was lucky enough to feel. 11 people were murdered, and the serenity of the only other place that I call home was shattered. This world is not simple. It is full of pain, hatred, anger, and sorrow. And the only thing that we can each do is decide to promote peace, love, mutual respect, kindness, and serenity. And each and every one of you is doing that on a daily basis by supporting Hadassah, and there are no words to express my gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for building an oasis of peace, health, and serenity in an otherwise very complicated world. You are all making all the difference. Thank you.